Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Chloe Carmichael, clinical psychologist, author of the book Nervous Energy, and of course, your host of the High Functioning Hotspot podcast, where I like to interview and talk to high functioning driven people and learn what they're up to and how they go through life. So today's guest is Jen Broyles. She is a pharmaceutical sales rep who became kind of an Instagram sensation and teaching all kinds of really interesting breath works and essential oils techniques and things like that that she used to solve her own digestive and gut health problems. So I'm really excited to speak with her, not only just for the information that she's going to share, but because one of the marks of a high functioning person is that if they're having a problem and they can't figure out how to solve it, they're not afraid to get help and talk to other people, which is exactly what Jen did as she, kind of became an expert on the subject so that she could figure out how to deal with the issue herself. So without further ado, here's Jen Broyles. Thanks so much for coming to the High Functioning Hotspot.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, just to jump right in, I was interested to speak with you because on this show, I like to talk to people that are high functioning themselves. And then in your case, it sounds like you also help other people to be able to increase their own functioning. So there's kind of a couple of different layers that I was interested in. But just to start off a little bit, if you might just share a little bit about yourself and what it means to be a holistic health coach and how you came to be on that path. I'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, for so many of us that are practitioners in the natural health world, we get there through either our own health journey or that of a loved one. And that was really the case for me. I was in my 20s and early 30s and experiencing some digestive issues and wasn't finding answers in the conventional route. And that's really all I knew and what I really believed in at the time. I worked in pharmaceutical sales. I sold all the prescription drugs and thought that was really the ultimate solution to healing. But when that avenue didn't work for me, I was kind of forced to look elsewhere. And so I started with nutrition because I didn't really know a whole lot about true nutrition. And once I started reading books and doing research and finding answers outside of this conventional model that I was so familiar with, it just opened my eyes to this new world and kind of sparked a passion within me. So once I started learning all this information and implementing it myself, I saw that there were so many natural ways to support the body in healing. And that's when I decided to go back to school and study integrative nutrition and become a holistic health coach. And through there, the journey has continued to evolve into bringing in other tools like essential oils and breath work to really support the mind and the body in healing, all levels of healing.
Right, that's great. So one of the things that I've noticed with high functioning people, and this happens with, the area of therapy sometimes. So I'm a clinical psychologist myself, obviously, like, I have very good training and very good credentials, but I just think a lot of people who are coming to find a therapist, I often feel almost kind of bad for the general public because your average person can just put whatever almost random string of letters after their name that might mean that they've been to like a 6-week certificate course or whatever. And like the average person just doesn't know that much about it. And I found that in general, high functioning people, they tend to respect credentials and expertise. And so sometimes they just see all these letters after a person's name and they're like, oh, that must be an expert. I'll go with them. And I'm just curious in your field, I wonder if there's some kind of a parallel. How could the average person actually sort through the noise and make sure that they're seeing someone who actually really knows what they're doing?
That is such a good question because you're right. There's a lot out there. Now with the internet, we can find information in a split second, and there's so much information that it can be overwhelming. And the same goes with searching for the right practitioner. And I think what you have to do is it does take time, and that may be the good or the bad thing, however you choose to see it. But I think it's worth investing the time to follow a practitioner online. I mean, most practitioners now have an online presence. You know, get on their newsletter, watch any videos that they have, start to know them as best you can, you know, online. And I feel like having that connection with somebody is really important. So if you feel like you really vibe with a practitioner just from what you're seeing online, and the stuff they're teaching seems to really make sense and resonate with you, and maybe they have their own healing story as well, I think that's really powerful. It's not necessary, but it is powerful. So I do feel like taking the time and doing your research, because there's a level of responsibility that falls on the patient, right, or the client, and taking the time to know that you are worth investing in. And sometimes that means doing a little research up front, and following a few people on social media and on their website and their blog, and watching YouTube videos and things like that, and really getting to know them and see how it feels. I think learning to really trust that gut feeling is super important. And if what they're saying, if what they're teaching is really resonating with you, then that may be a good fit for you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any, like, the reason I'm just curious about this too, though, is because I feel like the same thing is true with therapy, probably as with holistic health coaching in many ways, that oftentimes the client is coming because they don't know a lot about this. And if they just kind of go with their gut, like, you know, if whatever the person is saying makes sense, that could almost be kind of dangerous for somebody that doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like, there could be a really charismatic person that talks about how all you should eat is lettuce, you know, and it is
Yeah.
all you need, and it is packed with water, and it is good for you. And, you know, like they could vibe with that person and feel like they had a great connection with that person, but that person still might not actually really know what they were talking about. So I'm
Yes.
curious, like, are there any like particular, like, what's the credentials or like letters after a person's name that people should look for?
So in the health and nutrition world, there are a lot of different ones. You know, I am a holistic health coach. I attended the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. There's nutritional therapy practitioners. There's, holistic nutritionists and clinical nutritionists. There's a lot of different credentials out there. So it does, that gets tricky for sure in terms of the letters behind a person's name. But also, like, for me personally, you know, when I hear a practitioner that comes across very extreme, like their way is the only way, and you have to follow this protocol and buy, you know, all of their stuff and do
Right.
all of this testing, I start to question that, right? So I really resonate with like someone that has a more open view and is going to customize things to each individual and recognize the bio individuality that we all have, and no one diet works for everyone, and not everyone needs to be on this little bundle of supplements and all of that. So those are some of the things that I look for,
Right.
is if someone is promoting like this one thing with all of this stuff and this is the only way, that's kind of where I start to question things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I do want to also ask you about the breath work and the stoma breath work. I know that's something that you have a lot to share about. But before I get to that, I just wanted to also, you know, take a little bit of a sidebar on just you, again, as a high functioning person. I know a lot of people want to go and, you know, become a holistic health coach, or, you know, start their own business and all those things. And you know, not everyone is able to just do it. In fact, most of the people who, you know, try out those types of endeavors are not initially successful. And it seems like you've done so well. You've built a, you know, a large social media following, and you're doing really well. So I'm just curious, like, on a business standpoint or on a personal resilience level, can you talk about what makes you successful where others have not been?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. I will tell you, building something from scratch is not easy. You know, it's one of those things where you do have to have a lot of resilience and just keep going, even on the days where you start to question yourself, you have a lot of doubt, you're frustrated. things aren't working out according to your plan, right? And you just have to keep going and keep doing the things that are driving you and that you know will ultimately build a business. And so yeah, I think it does take a certain type of person. I mean, I have a lot of friends that have no interest in being an entrepreneur. Like they love going to a job and having that stable paycheck and all of this stuff, and that's fine. We're all wired differently. But for you, if you're listening and you think like, yes, you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be in the health field, I will tell you, I had some very strong misconceptions when I first came into it, because like I said, I came out of pharmaceutical sales where I had, you know, a great paycheck every month. I had wonderful benefits, all these things, like financially very secure. And then basically started from scratch. And I literally in my mind, for some reason, thought it was going to be pretty easy. Like I would just announce to the world in one email and one social media post that I'm now a health coach, and I'd have clients lining up at my door, you know? So that was not the case. And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of collaboration with other people, and it takes just a lot of time and energy on your part on getting your name out there, and whether it's starting a blog or starting a podcast or you know, sharing stuff on social media. I find that offering up education is one of the best ways to do it, instead of, you know, always asking people to, you know, become your client or, you know, trying to sell something all the time. You know, giving first, and then it starts to come back to you. So whether that's sharing your knowledge through a blog post or sharing your knowledge through an Instagram post, those are the things, if you're consistent with it and you're doing small steps every day, then things do start to grow. So it's a total mindset shift, because I feel like through this journey, I have grown so much personally, because it is so much a change in your mindset and just a lot of personal growth through it all as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, with therapists, there's a lot of therapists are really kind of introverted, and they love to just sit in their little office and have people come and talk to them. And they put the clients in front of us in graduate school. So they did great in graduate school, but then when it comes time to like actually get their clients, you know, they have no idea how to do it. So I actually teach a course like helping them to do that sometimes. And I think a lot of what you said would really resonate, probably not only with therapists or health coaches, but really with anybody that wants to put themselves out there and, you know, just elevate their profile.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so but with all that covered, I really was curious. As a former yoga teacher, we're
Mm-hmm.
obviously also super into breath work, and I still do a fair amount of breath work actually, like even in workshops and things, with corporate workshops and people that are interested in wellness and the psychology of how we feel when we breathe. And obviously, like when people talk about the body-mind connection, I'm just like, the brain is in the body, you know, like there's almost not
Exactly.
really a distinction, you know, but
Yes.
anyway, so I'm curious if you can share a little bit about your experience with breathing and the soma breathing. I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So I honestly had no idea how powerful our breath is. You know, our breath, as you know, it's one function in the body that is under this involuntary control. It's under the role and function of the autonomic nervous system. So it happens in the background. It's one of those things we don't really think about. You know, we came into this world breathing. We didn't have to necessarily learn how to breathe. And it's the thing that keeps us alive. And so it just happens on its own. But the problem here is that so often it gets hijacked by stress. And so when we are stressed out and we're living in chronic stress, our breath tends to take a toll, and it gets out of sync, and it becomes erratic, and it becomes fast and shallow. And the whole way we're breathing starts to get messed up, which ultimately stimulates more stress and can contribute to illness and imbalances in the body. And so when I first discovered breath work, and I've done all different types of breath work, I was just blown away about how when I bring awareness to my breath, but not just that, but actually consciously breathe, meaning that I start to control the way I'm breathing and breathe in a different pattern, it influences different effects. And that was just amazing to me, you know, the way that consciously breathing in a certain pattern can make me feel, and how much lighter and freer I could feel, how much calmer and at peace I could feel, how much more energized I could feel. It was really amazing. And so with Soma breath work, it's rooted in pranayama and yoga. And what we're doing for most of a Soma breathwork session, we're doing this rhythmic diaphragmatic breathing. So we're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, in beats to music. So we're playing music throughout it all. So it's a really fun and kind of high energy experience. But what we're doing is we're bringing that natural rhythm back. So we're designed to, one, do nostril breathing. So often we're breathing in through our mouth, which we should be breathing in through our nose. And oftentimes we may even find that we're holding our breath without realizing it. So what we want to do is bring that natural rhythm back to our breath, where we're breathing in and out at pretty equal rates, and we're slowing our breath. So many of us are breathing really fast because, again, we're living in this stressed out state. So once we start to slow our breath, it starts to calm the mind and calm the body. So with this rhythmic breathing and breathing in beats to music, we're really starting to calm the nervous system and bring balance to the nervous system. So getting out of that fight or flight, that survival mode, getting in more of that rest, relax, digest state of being. And it helps us also bring back and harmonize the other rhythms in our body. You know, think about all the different rhythms that our body has, that we need for proper functioning: digestion, circadian rhythms, heart rate, blood pressure. It starts to bring all these kind of back into balance. And I mean, you notice immediately that your stress levels drop, you can think clearer. You know, some of the breathwork sessions I do are really tailored to rest and restore. So we may do them in the evening and it really helps with sleep. Others we may do to help energize and focus and be more productive during your day. But you can do it with this sense of calm as well. So it's like an energized calm, which is a really neat combination where you feel like you've got motivation to accomplish the things you want to accomplish. You've got clarity, but you don't feel super stressed out about it, right? And so just tuning into our breath and breathing consciously in that way can really help us just live in a much better state throughout our day. And it helps us fix our breathing too. So if we are breathing incorrectly, this can help fix our breathing, which is going to ultimately improve our health on a number of different levels.
Okay. Is there any way that you could explain, like in like a minute or two, like suppose that somebody was like, I'll try it. I'll put on a song right now and try it with some music. Like what would a person do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're breathing in different rhythms throughout a session. So typically we're breathing in for a count of 4 and out for a count of 4. So if you do that to beats of music, and we use special music that has breathing sounds and counting built into it, and it's just this really powerful transformative music. But yeah, you can do it with any music that has a good beat. And so if you just breathe in for a beat of 4 through the nose and out for a beat of 4 through the mouth.
I'm trying right now. That's why I'm rocking. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. And if somebody wanted to like find you online and, you know, try your classes online, I'm assuming, you know, how would they find you?
Absolutely. My website is jenbroyles.com. So it's my name. And you can find all types of information there. But I have a free quiz you can take to find out if you are breathing correctly. So if you go to my homepage, you'll see it there, but also jenbroyles.com/breath-quiz. You can find that. Take the quiz, and then you'll also receive a few different breathing techniques from me as well.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm just curious then, like kind of back to the business perspective. I know that for me, when I started my own business and, you know, I was like thrilled and surprised that I started to really book up with clients faster than I had imagined. And then like there came a point when I started hiring people. And that's been its own wild ride. And I'm just curious for you if you can talk a little shop with us. are you hiring people? Are you thinking about that? What are your thoughts in that department?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have hired people in the past. I still do a lot of running the business myself. But I have in the past had someone help me with my blog. And I've also had someone help me with social media in the past. And now I do those two on my own now. I've just figured out ways to be more efficient with it and that sort of thing. So I feel like I can take that on. I do have someone that helps me with PR, and so I haven't really had that in the past. So that's something new that I've brought on. So it's kind of been different people over the course of my business, but yeah, it is an interesting thing, hiring people to help you do different things, because I've hired social media people that have not panned out, and it's frustrating because you invest a lot of money and you're not seeing the return. And so I think the biggest thing that I had to learn there was like, I made the best decision in that moment. Like I tried to gather as much information as I could and get, testimonials and hear other people's experiences from working with someone. And I made the best decision in that moment, because I've definitely had those times where I just kind of beat myself up over making a bad decision. And I've learned that you just can't, that doesn't serve anybody. Like you just have to like say, okay, that I did the best I could at the time, but now I know. And I've learned something from it. I've learned these are some other questions I can ask, and this is some other stuff that I can look for. So it is important to do your research when you hire somebody. And if you can get testimonials and other people's experiences, that's always good. And then just know that at some point you have to make a decision. I heard a quote somewhere, I don't remember where, but I think they said, gather like 40 to 70% of the information, something in there. If you don't have, at least you feel like if you don't have like 40% of the information, then you're not ready to make a decision. If you've got more than 70%, then it's time to make a decision. And I was like, that's a really good way of putting it, because there's going to be some stuff you just don't know, and there is a level of risk, but yeah,
Yeah,
just do the best
I
you
like
can.
what you're saying about, I did the best I could with the information at the time, because
Mm-hmm.
I think with a lot of high functioning people, part of the way that they do thrive is by being very willing, to look
Yeah.
in the mirror and say like, okay, how could I have done that better? Being the first person to be able to take some constructive criticism or even create it for yourself. But then there is a tipping point where it can become demotivating.
Yeah.
So I think it was a Buddhist teacher, I think, that I came across once, but he said really that we need honesty and compassion to navigate, growth. Like we have to be willing to say like, yep, that wasn't so great. And yep, there were things that I could have done better. And then we also have to have the compassion side where we do kind of say like, okay, but I was doing the best I could, and here's where I went awry, and creating the compassion enough that we're able to acknowledge the mistake. I think
Yes.
for people who are so hard on themselves about mistakes, it actually becomes more difficult for them to give themselves permission to actually acknowledge and see the mistake. So yeah, there's definitely a sweet spot there
Yeah.
in the middle. But what I didn't hear you mention when you talked about hiring people, I didn't hear you mention hiring any other holistic health coaches. And I'm just curious if that means that, do you see yourself as just being the one woman show with some support staff? Or would you, if you felt like there was demand, like would you hire someone? Just curious.
Yeah, if there was demand, if I felt like there was demand and it made business sense, I absolutely would. I just haven't at this point. So yeah, so right now it's me. But if there's ever a time, like I am very open to expanding and bringing other people on when the time is right. So just haven't gotten there yet. So
Yeah. Well, I'll just share with you. I mean, I've hired so many therapists over the years.
yeah,
And interestingly, I've actually had some of my best therapists come in as trainees because, sometimes they're just, the most eager, the most
mhm,
willing, they have the most energy, they have the most desire. I find, sometimes that can be true as well of people that are further along in their careers, but sometimes I've actually found, that the people who are actually in a training program are, because I guess at the end of the day, I'm also not really hiring a therapist just to be a therapist. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hiring them because somebody wants to see me, but due to reasons of schedule or budget, they can't. And so we're looking for someone that's going to be almost like a surrogate of me,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you were ever, since you mentioned like, demand and expense, I mean, like I'm sure the training programs, they would probably be glad to place somebody like in
Yeah.
a successful program.
Yeah.
Although, for me, I've kind of gotten away from that more over the years. I'm like with my book and, programs and other stuff. Speaking of energy, it's like, I almost feel like a kid in a candy store sometimes. And, you seem to have a lot of that natural passion and enthusiasm for what you do. And I think a lot of high functioning people do is, we tend to get into jobs not just by accident, like we get into them because we have a passion for them.
Yeah.
And so, for us, when it comes to setting limits with our professional life, it can actually be difficult, to do that, which I think for people who are in jobs that they don't love might be difficult to understand that. But I can see just from, everything that you're doing that it's a labor of love for you. So I was just
Yeah.
curious, like when and how you would bump up against the limits of saying, oh, I want to, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I'll know when I get to that point. I feel like over the years I've become a lot better at setting boundaries, and just implementing self-care ultimately, and saying these are my work hours, and outside of that, like, I'm shutting off email, I'm not checking my phone, I'm putting it in airplane mode, all of these things, and having those clear boundaries. And that's been really helpful for me, because you're right, like, I love what I do. I think that's another thing that as entrepreneurs that keeps us going, even when some days are more difficult than others. We love what we're doing, and we really believe in sharing what we have to offer. And but at the same time, it is challenging to shut down work, because it doesn't always feel like work. It's sometimes, it's enjoyable. And so it's easy to start early and work late. But over the years, like I said, I've been a lot better at just kind of shutting that off, and leaving work in those set hours as much as possible. There's always exceptions, but as much as possible. So I've got time to myself, got time for self-care, got time with my family, all of those things that are important as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always like joke with people that like if I didn't get paid to do therapy, I would actually probably pay money to do it, just to
Yeah.
be like, I would actually pay to do it, just to be.
Yes.
I mean, in fact, when I think about the $250,000 of money I spent on education, I guess I kind of did pay like to do therapy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, at least now the balance has come out in the black for me, so that's good.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it certainly seems like the same for you. And so I just really congratulate you. I think that when people can, have that magic ability, in my opinion, to be able to do what we love, and to be able to actually also create a livelihood out of it, it's a beautiful thing. And so I thank you for coming to share with me. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or bring up, or if not, just go ahead and say one more time how people can reach you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Chloe, first of all, thank you for having me on. This has been a pleasure, and it's so great to have this conversation with you. And yeah, I mean, for any of you that are in that place of trying to decide like next steps in your career, your professional life, if there's something you're passionate about and you can find a way to do it, I say absolutely go for it. Even if it means, starting it on the side and building it as much as you can in the time that you have. So I think dreams are definitely possible, and you can find me again at jenbroyles.com and on all the social media platforms at the same name. So I'm excited to hopefully connect with all of you.
Awesome. And that's JenBroyles.com. We'll put it in the show notes too.
Awesome.
Okay. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Jen, for joining me. Have a good rest of the day. Stay healthy.
You too.
Okay,
You
bye.
too. Bye.
Well, what a lovely conversation. I just have to say, I really enjoyed the chance to connect with Jen and just so inspired by the way that when she wasn't finding the answers that she needed, through the channels available, she kind of became the channel herself. And she was able to do that and find fulfillment herself, as well as professionally as well, that she was able to parlay that into a business. So go, Jen. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. I hope to see you at the next episode. Take care.